Welcome to the Thought Leaders video blog, where industry executives share their insights and vision in today's landscape of live entertainment.
So Zack, Lassiter, Oregon State, thank you so much for joining the Paculum Thought Leaders video blog. We're really excited to have you.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate being on.
Yeah, so this is an interesting time. 2020 has been quite an interesting year. Of course, there's COVID-19 and the pandemic, and recently some positive protesting around Black Lives Matter, and which is really integral and important for society. So how are you doing personally, and how are you leading your team during today's times?
Yeah, what an amazing chapter in American history. 92 days ago, I was in Las Vegas with our men's basketball program. We actually had beaten Utah in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament. Mm-hmm. We had a last-second three, and everyone got on the court and hugged each other and was celebrating. And the next morning, we were in a team meeting, team breakfast before the next day, and that's when everything stopped.
Wow.
And obviously, the last 92 days have been difficult. I think leading's about influencing and serving others. And you didn't know really early on in this process what that was going to look like. And for me, once we started working from home, I think, not only myself, because you can't lead others, you can't serve others unless you serve yourself first.
Sure.
And you're in a good place. One of the questions I asked myself over and over again is what can I do in the short term that can make us better, that can serve us better in the long run when things return to normal. About 91 days ago, I didn't know what normal was going to be, but I really felt like we could use this time as individuals, as a team, to figure out what tangible and intangible things can you do. And it really, for me, kind of started with mental and physical health for myself, making sure that I was doing the right things. Physically, I'm probably in better shape than I've been in the last decade of my life. I've lost 20 pounds just from running and eating and being in better shape. And then mentally, for me, whether it's reading, whether it's through my faith and prayer, a lot of those things, it started from there. And then, I think that served us well for the first, 7 to 8 weeks of this. And then the last 2 weeks, I think, have been another level of difficult. Professionally here at Oregon State, we had to make some really just gut-wrenching decisions around moving forward without some great teammates. And that's an experience that you never want to go through, especially when, these people have done great work and they didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I think the most important thing, which is the issues around social injustice and racism, and the reality that these issues are not 92 days old. These issues are hundreds of years old, and that how can we, especially myself as a white male, right, not truly understand what people are going through, but as someone who wants to lead with empathy and wants to understand, listening, learning, just absorbing those things, I think has been difficult, but it's important. And listening to our student athletes, listening to our staff, listening to my friends, family, and then being alongside them. We had a rally here in Corvallis on Sunday around Black Lives Matter, and was down there with my wife and my two boys that are in middle school, and seeing our student athletes in the community, and walking the streets of Corvallis, and seeing those things, and watching my kids, talk about Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and really kind of understanding for the first time, we were walking together in that community, not as athletic department employees, but as human beings. And so it's been, I look forward to the day where it's not just, action, not just talk, but actions too. So I think all those things have contributed to so many different challenges, but really excited about what we can take from this time and get better.
Powerful. So you mentioned mental health, and people have been quarantined and working from home for 3 months. So are there things that you're doing to help check the mental health of the team, and are there any programs that you're working on to do some sanity check for team members?
Yeah, great question, Craig. And this is progress, right? I love that we're talking about mental health, and we all know what that was, because a few years ago this was a topic we wouldn't talk about in a lot of ways. And one of the ways that we have tackled that topic was student athlete driven, which I think is so such a good piece of what we do, right? Is we're in the education business, and we have young men and women that are leading us and tackling these issues. And we started a campaign here a couple years ago called Damn Worth It. It was actually started by Nathan Broughton and Taylor Ritchie, two of our student athletes. It was really focused around ending the stigma around mental health and saying it's okay to not be okay. So fortunately, we've been talking about mental health well before, this current situation. And so that phrase, it's okay, is to kind of meet people where they are, and they shouldn't feel bad if you're struggling at times, like we all do. And instead of saying, hey, stop struggling, right? Get better, get tougher, embrace that, understand it, and then how do you manage that? And for us, with our staff, we're all kind of in different places mentally because of our home situation. I have a family here. We have a lot of young employees that are by themselves. Others, maybe. And so we really encourage them to find the place physically where they can be their most authentic self. And that may be Corvallis, that may be Montana, that may be New Jersey, that may be North Carolina. Really kind of get them in a place where they can be themselves, be around a support system that works for them, knowing that some people, this stage of life, define their life by what they do for a living. And now we're somewhat taking that away and asking them to figure out how to get through each day. And then create community. I think it's been interesting to listen to the team, and we talk about, what have we done better during this time? What can we still do better? One of the things that I've heard pretty consistently is we feel like we're communicating better during this time. We took a communication channel that our ideation team uses called Slack. It's a way for us to, I think, communicate formally and informally, and we have adopted it across our entire external team. So I actually think if you measure the amount of contact we have from back and forth and talking to people about work, but also about dogs, about outdoor activity, I feel like we're creating community for people that need it, and then others that just need to reach out every once in a while, checking them too. But talking to them about it is the most important thing, as opposed to ignoring it and feel like people can figure it out on their own.
That's great. Thank you. So, thinking about the business, and I saw an article in Sports Business Journal, and the target mentioned for Oregon State was 50% capacity for Resner for football. So how are things going in that regard? I know this is a loaded question because things are so fluid and moving quickly, but how are things going? Are you looking at social distancing, and what kind of scenario do you think is going to unfold for you?
Yeah, Craig, I appreciate the question. I've gained so much respect for my boss, our athletic director, Scott Barnes, through this process. And something that he says frequently, I've adopted, which is the longer we wait, the more we know. That there's so much a desire for certainty and understanding of what's going to happen. And the reality is we still don't truly know what the fall is going to look like. But we can prepare for it. And for us, the two things that I felt like were critical for us to be able to achieve whatever the fall looks like are, number one, technology. Do we have the technology to be able to solve for whatever we can? And this isn't a plug for Pacquiao, but God bless you guys for being ready for this, having technology solutions that I believe will allow us to achieve whatever result we want to. I don't think we had that 12 months ago in terms of where we needed to be. So that gives me a lot of satisfaction, a lot of comfort, knowing that I think we have the technology to solve for whatever the equation may be. And then second, do we have the personnel, right? Do we have the people to be able to use the technology? We're blessed with some really, really talented ticketed professionals. Back in the day, I dabbled in tickets myself, so I know a thing or two about it. Our development team is on board, so I think we have a pretty good strategy. And now the question is, how are we going to do it? And I think for us, the things that we're still wrestling with is how do you maximize attendance while also maximizing health and safety. And I think the current challenge or opportunity we're looking at is around the manifest. I think a fixed manifest versus a variable manifest. And a fixed manifest, I think, has been well documented, and we have best practices around that. I still think there's some ideas around a variable manifest that could allow us to expand capacity, understand what that looks like. And then also, do we look at the season in a traditional way as a full season, or do we look at it as for, in our case, 7 individual games, and think of each of those as a marquee game? Maximize flexibility, right? Give yourself the most options to be able to serve people, so that when we get direction on what it's going to look like, that we can activate it. And I think that we're going to get there. I don't think we know today what it's going to look like. Our hope, from a priority standpoint, we want to serve our season ticket holders and donors. We want to serve our students, and then we want to serve our staff. And then if we can also serve many plans and serve single game buyers, we want to do that too. But before we go in, we got to have an idea of what our goals are, and we feel good about that. But yeah, I and everybody in my position around the country would love to know what's the percentage and how is that going to work. But we just don't know yet, and that's okay, because I do feel like every day we get closer to the season, hopefully we have better information. We have information that can maybe have us help more people. And I'd rather wait than know, right? Knowing first and knowing last, sometimes it can be mixed up.
Yeah, for sure. The Pac-12 conference, I mean, Oregon, Washington, California, many of the states are highly impacted. So have you heard anything else from your Pac-12 brethren? Is there anything else that you guys are contemplating for conference games that may be different this year?
Yeah, one of the benefits, I think, of this time is we probably spend more time as a league talking to one another. Conference has done just an incredible job being a facilitator for that. We got a lot of really smart people in our league, and a lot of friends of mine just from the industry. So we're talking more regularly, I think, about important things than ever before. And the reality is, each of us are in slightly different places and recognize that ultimately this is going to be driven at much more a local level around health and safety. But where can we collaborate? Where can we find ideas from the center that allow us to solve for it? And I think that's been helpful. Because I do think there are things that as a league we agree on that all 12 institutions should do. And then there's other things where, how are you guys handling this option, right? How are you learning this? Because we've got smart people. Washington's got smart people, Stanford's got smart people, Arizona got smart people. All of us have different areas of expertise. So it's been really helpful, I think, to listen to one another. There's a pretty healthy sound of respect. And while we usually compete against each other in a lot of things, and we may be reluctant to share all of our best practices, and there's still probably a few things we all keep to ourselves, there's a lot of things we're willing to help one another with. And I think that's been helpful. And that's why, I'm biased. I think the Pac-12 is the best league in the country for a lot of reasons. And I've been very thankful for the league and the folks around the league at the institutions helping us through this time.
That's powerful too. So talk to me a little bit more about, the Pac-12 is well known for really being a data-centric conference, and you aggregate data and you use Domo to, track some benchmarking. So how are you and how is the Pac-12 looking at data given today's conditions, and how are you looking at data for the future as well?
Yeah, data's power, right? I mean, the more information we have, the smarter we get, right? I can fool a lot of people if I have a lot of information, and data allows us to do that. And the Fan Data Project has been helpful. Domo has allowed our organization, I think, every day to have numbers that can then drive decisions. The things I think that we can add to that during that time, a lot of the transition from live events, tours around the state of Oregon for us. We did a Beaver State tour before, and we would go and we would spend time with folks in the state, and it was wonderful. We moved that to a virtual environment, and we had people log in, and now we've got really powerful information to be able to act on that and see what those folks are. I also think the transition to digital tickets, we're going to move 100% that direction. You and your team know, more than anyone, that when we had hard tickets, we truly didn't know everybody in our stands, right? We knew who we gave the original ticket to, and then what went on from there, we We may know, we may not. Now, for the first time, we'll truly know everybody who's at every one of our events. And then our ability to act on that, I think we're going to grow our database significantly. And then how we can then market to those individuals, talk to them, meet their needs. I think it's a really big inflection point in how we look at tickets and how we look at data. And I think we're prepared for it. But I still think we have a long way to go. I always learn from our professional teammates that have access to larger budgets and larger pieces. And then the business community as a whole, a lot of our retail partners and our corporate partners have been really leaning into them to understand how they use data from a retail standpoint. And they've been really helpful of explaining those things. So I think that our ability to use data will be significantly improved because of the situation that we're in right now.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a tough question and a loaded question. So fast forward a year from now, so it's June 2021. As you look back on the past 12 months, what does success look like?
Yeah, that's a deep end of the pool question right there. Let me start with what I think is most important, and that our words around social injustice and racism have turned into actions. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan, have a lot of respect for Nelson Mandela, mm-hmm. right? And one of the many intelligent things he said, is that sports have the power to change the world. They have the power to inspire. They have the power to unite people in the way that few things do. So I hope that Nelson Mandela's words continue to be true, and that somehow we use our platform and that sports is helped to drive some action in that space. From an Oregon State athletics standpoint, I certainly hope that we're playing games, that our student athletes are back on campus, that they're trying to get back to why they originally chose to come to Oregon State University, right, to further their educational career, to further their athletic career. I hope our staff is able to find some normalcy again and find that joy in why they chose to work in college sports. All those pieces are important. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I will always believe in optimism and that things were going to get better, not worse. And so, yeah, I don't know what it'll look like, Craig, but I'm hopeful. And I believe that we're headed in the right direction. But man, yeah, it'll be fun to talk in June, because I imagine there'll be a lot of things that will come up that we hadn't predicted. No different than if we would have talked, 93 days ago, and we would have said, hey, what does success look like in the next 3 months? I probably would have whiffed on that question pretty significantly if you would have asked me that on March 10th. So let's see how it goes. But I am hopeful again on just the actions of our country, and that we're in a better place, and we've made progress in an area that, while we've made some progress in the last hundreds of years, we've got a long way to go.
Great. So you and your team, and you are a innovative leader. You've got your ideation team. What's on your mind for innovation now? We talked a bit about mobile and data, but what's on your mind for innovation now and in the future? And do you have any plans to leverage this time to really innovate?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Craig. I've been lucky enough to be around a lot of talented and risk-taking individuals my whole life. And I think that generally leads to innovation. I think this time, there's no better time for innovation in times of scarcity and adversity. And for us, because I think we're just naturally curious people. We always ask the question, what if? Even though we've done this way, what if we did it this way? What if we wanted to actually solve this problem that we complain about? And so I think we're continuing to ask those what if questions. And then we're also not afraid to fail, right? Because innovators get praised for their success. They don't usually get praised for the 5 things that they tried and didn't work. And the reality is nobody hits 100% in these areas. And so we're going to continue to innovate and have some success, and probably innovate and fail. And we're not going to get discouraged when we fail, because at least we're in the arena and trying. And you have to be in the arena of innovation in order to innovate. And that's a very vulnerable place to be. But I think there are, gosh, still a ton of what if questions around college athletics, even though I've been in it now for, gosh, 18 years, I think, if I'm doing the math right. I still think there's a lot of what if questions around ticketing. And I think the digital ticketing and what we're going to do now will allow us to solve a lot of what ifs that we were just ignoring for a long time, or just not willing to try to tackle because there were other things that were more important. I think there's a lot in the sports information communications department, as telling stories and the way the media landscape has changed and the way they need to be equipped with telling their story. I think there's a lot of innovation and solutions around that. And then I think sponsorships too. I think there, so much of our history around sponsorships, or what we call spots and dots, right? Signage, activation around games. Well, what if we took games away, right? What if those issues are, how are we going to solve for that? So I think incorporating our partners 365 days of the year, as opposed to, 6 Saturdays, obviously other sports as well. I think there's going to be a lot of healthy conversation about how do we utilize our partners and how can we serve one another during this time. And I also think structurally, I think innovation is a lot about individuals, but it's also about environment. We're constantly nimble. We're constantly reorganizing ourselves in different ways. We're going to do that in the short term here. We're going to find our best people, and we're going to give them more opportunity. And so they're going to be doing new things, which will ultimately lead to innovation. And then when we grow out of this and we, become a place that people want to come to again, then we're going to recruit more talented folks, and we're going to give them opportunity to innovate. And then I'm going to get the heck out of their way and watch them take off. And that's part of the joy of what we do. I mean, I can't imagine doing what we do and just, old Sally, right? Same as last year. Let's just roll it out. I did that 1 or 2 years early in my career, and I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable. And I'm like, man, if that's what college athletics is, then maybe this isn't for me. But it's not. Our industry allows us to innovate every day, every year. And I'm so thankful for that. That's one of the many reasons why I love this industry. I love what we do. I love how we can impact others. And yeah, I don't want to give you all our secrets away. I hope a year from now that you still think that we're innovators and we're doing great things at Oregon State. I'm confident of it. But we'll see what happens to what the future holds.
Great. Zack Lassiter, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for your time and partnership.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining the Thought Leaders video blog. And remember, everyone can step up and be a leader in their own way. We look forward to seeing you next time.